The chamber was built from crystal that caught starlight and turned it into colors no human eye had ever seen. 12 species sat around the circular table, each one representing billions of lives. They had come from across the galaxy to this meeting, and every single one of them looked afraid. Ambassador Thelron stood at the center of the chamber. His skin was blue and smooth, and his 4 eyes blinked one at a time as he looked at the faces around him. He had been preparing for this moment for months, but his hand still shook as he activated the holographic display. 300 years, he said quietly. For 300 years we have fought them. For 300 years we have lost. The hologram showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots spread across it like a disease, each one marking a world that had fallen to the devourers. There were thousands of red dots, maybe tens of thousands. Thelron had stopped counting after the first 100. The devourers take everything, he continued. They consume our cities. They feed on our people. They leave nothing behind but empty worlds and silence. One of the council members, a tall creature covered in silver fur, slammed his hand on the table. We know this already, Thelron. Why have you called us here? To remind us that we are losing? Thelron's eyes all focused on the silver-furred being. No, Commander Leora, I called you here to show you hope. The hologram changed. Now it showed a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. The planet looked peaceful from space, covered in oceans and white clouds. It looked like the kind of world where nothing dangerous could possibly live. This is Earth, Thelron said. It is a death world. The council members shifted in their seats. Death worlds were rare and terrifying. They were planets where everything had evolved to survive in the harshest conditions. Most civilized species came from gentler places where life was easier and death came slowly. The dominant species calls themselves humans, Thelron explained. They have only just discovered faster-than-light travel. By our standards, they are primitives. They have no psionic abilities. They have no natural armor or weapons. They are fragile creatures who can be killed by a simple fall or a common disease. Then why are you wasting our time? Another council member asked. This one had scales that shimmered green and gold. We need warriors, not weaklings. Thelron touched the display again. The hologram changed to show images of Earth's history. The council members watched in silence as the images played out. They saw humans hunting animals 10 times their size. They saw humans surviving ice ages and volcanic eruptions. They saw humans building cities and then destroying them in wars that consumed millions of lives. Humans have survived 6 mass extinction events on their world, Thelron said. They evolved alongside predators that could kill them in seconds. They learned to use tools because their bodies were too weak to fight any other way. And when they had conquered every predator on their planet, they turned on each other. The hologram showed human wars. Swords and spears gave way to guns and bombs. The council members watched humans fight in trenches, in deserts, and jungles. They watched cities burn and mushroom clouds rise into the sky. They built weapons that could destroy their entire world, Thelron said softly, and they came within minutes of using them. Multiple times, the chamber was quiet now. The council members were no longer looking bored or angry. They were staring at the images with something that looked like fear. These are the creatures you want to bring into our coalition? Leora asked. They look like monsters. They are monsters, Thelron agreed. But they are monsters who win. He pulled up more data. Human military doctrine does not include concepts of honorable combat. They do not fight for glory. They fight to survive. Every human culture has independently developed the same basic understanding of warfare. Overwhelming force applied without mercy. They call it total war. One of the younger council members, a being made of crystalline structures that chimed when she moved, spoke up. But surely they have codes of conduct, rules of engagement, limits to what they will do? Thelron looked at her sadly. They have rules. But in their history, every time their survival was truly threatened, they abandoned those rules. They believe in something they call necessary evil, the idea that sometimes you must do terrible things to prevent even more terrible things. This is barbaric, the silver-furred Leora said, but her voice was quieter now. Less certain, yes, Thelron said, it is. But ask yourself this. In 300 years, with all our honor and all our codes of conduct, have we stopped the devourers? Have we saved even one world once the red dots appear? No one answered. They all knew the truth. The coalition had fought with honor for 3 centuries, and they had lost every major battle. Their greatest warriors, the proud Valorians who trained from birth, had been slaughtered. Their most brilliant strategists, the logical Nexari, had watched their perfect plans fail again and again. The Devourers did not care about honor. They did not respect courage. They simply consumed everything in their path. I am not suggesting we become like the humans, Thelron said. I am suggesting we let them do what they do best. We need time to evacuate our core worlds, time to build new defenses, time to find a real solution. The humans can buy us that time. By dying? Leora asked. By winning, Thelron corrected. Look at their history. They have never lost a war where their survival was at stake. Never. Because they are willing to do whatever it takes. And right now, that is exactly what we need. The debate lasted for hours. Some council members argued that bringing humans into the coalition would corrupt their values. Others argued that they had no choice. Some suggested that humans might be as dangerous as the Devourers. Others pointed out that at least humans could be reasoned with. Finally, the vote was called. It was not unanimous. It was not even close. But it passed. Thelron was authorized to contact Earth and request military assistance. The message was carefully written. It spoke of glory and honor. It spoke of defending the innocent and standing against evil. It spoke of brotherhood between species and the bonds forged in battle. The humans responded in less than 3 days. The message was short: we accept. Send coordinates. We will deploy immediately. The council celebrated. Fresh troops were coming. Hope had returned to the galaxy. They would hold the line. They would push back the darkness. They would survive. Thelron did not celebrate. He stood alone in his quarters looking at Earth's blue surface on his display screen. He had studied human history for months. He had watched their wars and read their philosophies. He understood what was coming better than anyone else in the coalition. They had asked Earth for warriors. For soldiers who would fight with honor and courage. For heroes who would inspire the galaxy. But humans were not warriors. Warriors fought for glory. Warriors respected their enemies. Warriors believed in fair combat. Humans were something else entirely, something the galaxy had never seen before, something Thelron suspected the galaxy was not prepared for. He turned off the display and closed all 4 of his eyes. In the darkness, he whispered to himself, "May the stars forgive us for what we have done." 3 weeks later, the first human transport ships entered Coalition space. The war was about to change in ways no one could imagine. The monsters were coming to fight monsters, and the galaxy would never be the same. The transport ships came out of hyperspace like knives cutting through fabric.
They were not beautiful.
Coalition ships were works of art, covered in symbols and colors that represented their homeworlds. Human ships looked like they had been built in a factory and never cleaned. Gray metal, sharp angles, no decoration at all. General Vextar stood in the docking bay of Fortress Station Krell 9, watching the ships approach through the massive windows. He had fought for 200 years. He had earned 17 medals for valor. He had personally led the defense of 4 worlds. He knew what warriors looked like. These ships did not look like they carried warriors. They looked like they carried weapons. Perhaps they are simply practical, Commander Leora said beside him. She was trying to sound optimistic. Not every species values beauty in their military vessels. Vextar said nothing. He had read the reports about Earth, all of them, the ones that Thelron had presented to the Council, and the classified ones that only military commanders could access. The classified reports had given him nightmares. The first transport ship docked with a heavy clang that echoed through the bay. No ceremony. No communication. Just a ship locking onto a station like a predator's jaw closing around prey. The airlock opened. Captain Dewan stepped through first. He was shorter than Vextar had expected. Humans were small compared to most coalition species, but the way he moved made Vextar's instincts scream warnings. Every step was calculated. Every glance was measuring. This was not a being who walked into a room. This was a being who assessed a room for threats and exits before his second foot crossed the threshold. Behind Dewan came his unit. 20 humans, each wearing armor that was matte black and covered in scratches and scorch marks. Their weapons were held loosely but never pointed at nothing. Even standing still, they looked ready to kill. Vextar stepped forward with his arms spread in the traditional coalition greeting. "Welcome, Captain Dewan. Welcome to Fortress Station Krell 9. We are honored to fight alongside." "Where are the targets?" Dewan interrupted. The words hung in the air like a slap. Vextar blinked all 3 of his eyes in surprise. Excuse me?" "The Devourers. Day One said.
His voice was flat and emotionless.
Where are they? What are their numbers? What are their capabilities? Where do you need us? Leora stepped forward quickly. Captain, we appreciate your eagerness, but there are protocols. We must orient you to our facilities, introduce you to our command structure, brief you on our rules of engagement, and... A woman behind Day One moved forward. She was young, with sharp eyes that never stopped moving. Lieutenant Hana, she said, not bothering with formal introductions. She pulled out a small device and pointed it at the wall. Holographic displays erupted in the air, showing the station's layout. Your defense grid has 17 critical weaknesses, Hana said, pointing at different sections of the hologram. Your power distribution is inefficient. Your weapon placements create 3 blind spots that any competent enemy could exploit. Your escape pods are in the wrong sections. If you lose decks 5 through 7, you lose access to half of them. She looked at Vextar directly. Has anyone ever attacked this station? No, Vextar said stiffly. Krell 9 has stood for 80 years without... That explains why you are still alive, Hana said. She turned to Day One. Captain, I recommend we reposition our forces to cover the primary weakness here. She pointed at a section of the station. If they hit us, they will hit us there. Day One nodded. Agreed. Get the defensive team working on solutions. Vextar felt his face heating up. Captain, this is a coalition facility. We have our own defensive teams, our own strategies. You cannot simply arrive and start giving orders. Day One looked at him. Really looked at him. His eyes were dark and flat, like looking into deep water where you could not see the bottom. General Vextar, he said quietly, how many stations have you lost to the Devourers? The question hit like a physical blow. Vextar's jaw tightened. 14. How many ships? Thousands. How many soldiers? Vextar did not answer. The number was too large. Too painful. Day One nodded slowly. We have read your tactical reports. Every single battle follows the same pattern. The Devourers attack. You fight with honor. You lose. We are not here to fight with honor, General. We are here to win. Another human stepped forward. He was massive, with scars covering his face and arms. Sergeant Tae Yang, he said gruffly. He walked past Vextar without asking permission and went straight to the weapons locker on the wall. He opened it, looked inside, and snorted. This is inadequate, Tae Yang said. These weapons are designed for suppression, not elimination. Your ammunition is low yield. Your explosives are tagged with safety limiters. You are fighting with one hand tied behind your back. Those safety limiters prevent collateral damage, Leora said defensively. They protect civilians and infrastructure. They also prevent you from winning, Tae Yang said. He pulled out one of the coalition rifles and examined it. Beautiful weapon. Very precise. Very clean. Completely wrong for fighting Devourers. He tossed it back into the locker and closed the door. We brought our own weapons. You will not like them. They are ugly. They are brutal, but they work. Vextar had had enough. Captain Day One, I understand that you have come a long way to help us, but you must understand our way of warfare. We fight with honor. We respect our enemies. We follow codes that have existed for thousands of years. These codes separate us from the Devourers. They make us civilized. Day One was silent for a moment. Then he said very quietly, General, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. How old are you? Vextar straightened proudly. 237 years. I am 32 years old, Day One said. Lieutenant Hana is 26. Sergeant Tae Yang is 35. The oldest member of my unit is 41. He paused. Do you know why we are so young, General? Vextar said nothing. Because humans do not live very long, Day One continued. A human lifetime is perhaps 80 or 90 years if we are lucky. We do not have centuries to learn from our mistakes. We do not have the luxury of losing wars and trying again later. When humans fight, we fight as if every battle might be our last. Because for many of us it will be. He walked closer to Vextar, and despite being shorter, he somehow seemed larger. You fight with honor because you can afford to. You have long lives and many chances. Humans fight to survive because we have short lives and one chance. That is not barbarism, General. That is necessity. The docking bay was silent. Even the other coalition soldiers had stopped what they were doing to listen. Leora cleared her throat. Perhaps we should continue this discussion during the facility tour? The tour was uncomfortable. The humans asked strange questions. Disturbing questions. They wanted to know the quickest way to evacuate civilians. They wanted to know acceptable casualty percentages. They wanted to know if there were any restrictions on what weapons could be used inside the station. When Vextar mentioned that the Devourers sometimes followed warrior codes and occasionally offered mercy to defeated enemies, all the humans stopped walking. They looked at each other. Several of them made expressions that Vextar could not interpret. They offer mercy? Day-One asked slowly. Sometimes, Vextar said. Not often. But there have been cases where Devourer commanders have allowed retreating forces to escape, where they have spared civilian populations. It suggests that they are not mindless monsters, that they can be reasoned with. Day-One nodded slowly. And how many times has the Coalition tried to negotiate peace? Hundreds of times. How many times has it worked? Vextar hesitated. The negotiations are ongoing. That means 0, Hana said flatly. 0 times. 300 years of war and 0 successful negotiations. Diplomacy takes time, Leora protested. You do not have time, a new voice said. A young woman stepped forward from the back of the human group. She was small even by human standards, with quick movements and intelligent eyes. Specialist Yuna, information warfare. She pulled out her device and started typing. I have been accessing your military database since we docked. Not to steal secrets, to understand the enemy. She looked up at Vextar. The Devourers show mercy exactly 7.3% of the time. Do you know when? Vextar shook his head. When they are outnumbered and need time to regroup. When they are testing your responses. When they are setting up ambushes. Yuna's voice was cold. It is not mercy, General. It is tactics. They let you go so you will tell others that survival is possible. It makes coalition forces less willing to fight to the death. It makes you hesitate. That is a cynical interpretation, Lyra said. It is the correct interpretation, Yuna replied. I have analyzed 4,000 battle reports. The pattern is clear. Every act of mercy is followed by a trap. The Devourers are not honorable warriors. They are hunters. And you are prey. That night, Vextar could not sleep. He kept thinking about the humans, about their cold eyes and brutal questions, about the way they looked at the war not as a test of courage but as a problem to be solved. He went to the observation deck and found Day-One standing there, looking out at the stars. Captain, Vextar said quietly. Day-One did not turn around. General, may I ask you something? Yes. The alarms screamed through every corridor of Fortress Station Krell 9. Red lights flashed in patterns that made shadows dance across the walls. Vextar ran toward the command center, his heart pounding. He had heard these alarms before. Too many times before. The Devourers were coming. The command center was chaos when he arrived. Officers shouted reports. Holographic displays showed the Devourer fleet dropping out of hyperspace. 40 ships. Maybe 50. It was hard to count them all because they kept appearing, one after another like a nightmare that would not end. All ships to defensive positions. Vextar ordered. Follow Protocol 7, hail the enemy fleet. Offer terms. General, one of his officers said nervously. The humans are not following the protocol. Vextar looked at the tactical display. The coalition ships were forming up properly, creating a defensive wall between the station and the enemy. Beautiful formations that had been perfected over centuries. Each ship knew its place. Each captain knew their role. The human ships were not in formation. They were accelerating directly at the Devourer fleet. Get me Captain Day-One, Vextar snapped. The communication channel opened. Day-One's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, Vextar could see the interior of the human ship. It was dark and cramped. No decorations. No comfort. Just weapons and screens showing targeting data. Captain, what are you doing? Vextar demanded. You are supposed to hold position and... We are engaging the enemy, Day-One said calmly. You cannot engage yet. We have not offered terms. We have not given them a chance to withdraw. Protocol demands... General, Day-One interrupted. We did not come here to follow your protocols. We came here to win. Stay in your defensive positions if you want. We will handle this. The channel closed. Vextar watched in horror as the human ships dove into the Devourer formation. They were outnumbered at least 5-1. It was suicide. Glorious suicide, perhaps, but still suicide, except it was not. The human ships moved like nothing Vextar had ever seen. They did not fly in straight lines or predictable patterns. They spun and twisted, making it impossible for the Devourer weapons to track them. And when they fired, they did not aim for the enemy's weapon systems or engines like the Coalition did. They aimed for the crew sections, for the life support systems, for the reactors. They are targeting civilians, Leora gasped, standing beside Vextar. Those are not military targets. There are no civilians on a Devourer warship. Day One's voice came through the open channel, though Vextar had not called him. The human captain must have hacked into the station's communication system. Every Devourer is a combatant. Every ship is a weapon. We do not discriminate. One of the human ships took a direct hit. Its shields flared and died. Vextar expected it to retreat, to pull back and repair. Instead, it accelerated harder. It flew straight into a Devourer carrier and exploded. The carrier's entire forward section vaporized. Bodies and debris spun out into space. Corporal Minho's ship is destroyed, someone reported. Noted, Daewon said. His voice showed no emotion, redirecting his squadron to target the supply ships. He just died, Vextar said quietly. Your soldier just died and you do not care? I care, Daewon said. That is why I am making sure his death accomplishes something. His sacrifice destroyed a carrier that would have killed thousands. That is what matters, the battle continued. It was not warfare as the Coalition understood it. It was slaughter. The humans fought like machines with no hesitation and no mercy. When Devourer ships tried to retreat, the humans hunted them down. When Devourer commanders tried to hail the human ships to offer surrender, the humans ignored them. A Devourer boarding party managed to breach the station on Deck 12. Coalition troops rushed to defensive positions, setting up proper firing lines and preparing to hold the corridor. The humans did not set up firing lines. Lieutenant Hana's squad was closest to the breach and they did something that made Vextar's blood freeze. They sealed the deck. What are you doing? Vextar shouted over the comm. We have 17 wounded Coalition soldiers on that deck. You cannot seal it. The wounded will slow down the Devourers, Hana replied calmly. They will waste time checking the bodies. That gives us time to set up the real defense. Those soldiers are still alive. Not for long. Hana's voice was matter-of-fact. Better they die quickly from decompression than slowly from Devourer weapons. I am venting the atmosphere in 30 seconds. Get your people out of the adjacent sections. Vextar wanted to countermand the order, wanted to rush to Deck 12 himself and save those soldiers. But he knew it was already too late. The human commander had made her decision. And she was right. Tactically, coldly, brutally right. The atmosphere vented. Everything on Deck 12 died. Coalition soldiers and Devourers alike. Then Hana's squad moved in, wearing full combat suits. They did not fight the remaining Devourers with honor or courage. They used every dirty trick Vextar had ever heard of and several he had not. They collapsed corridors. They detonated fuel lines. They used the station's own systems as weapons. When it was over, all the Devourers on Deck 12 were dead. So were all 17 Coalition soldiers. Deck 12 secure, Hana reported, moving to reinforce Deck 9. In space, the battle was ending. The Devourer fleet had been destroyed, not defeated, not driven off, destroyed. Out of 53 enemy ships, 49 were nothing but debris. The remaining 4 were crippled and drifting. Hail the surviving ships, Vextar ordered. Accept their surrender. Negative, Daewon said. There are no survivors. Captain, those ships are helpless. They cannot fight. We can take prisoners, learn from them. Perhaps even negotiate. General, do you know what happens when you let an enemy survive? Daewon asked. His voice was still calm, but there was something underneath it now. Something cold and old. They rebuild. They remember. They come back. And they kill your children. The human ships move toward the crippled Devourer vessels. I am ordering you to stand down, Vextar said desperately. I am invoking Coalition Code 773. You are required to... We are not part of your coalition, Daewon said. We are consultants, contractors. You asked us to help you win. This is how we win. The human ships fired. The 4 crippled Devourer vessels exploded. The command center was silent. Every coalition officer stared at the screens, watching debris float through space. They had won. They had achieved a complete victory. Not a single Devourer had escaped. They should have been celebrating. They should have been cheering. Instead, they looked sick. Vextar found Day One in the human section of the station an hour later. The human captain was reviewing battle reports with his officers. When Vextar entered, they all looked up. Their eyes were tired but alert. "Always alert, Captain Day One," Vextar said formally. "I need to speak with you about what happened today." "We won," Day One said. "What else is there to discuss? You killed wounded enemies. You sacrificed coalition soldiers without permission. You executed prisoners." Vextar's voice was shaking. "This is not warfare. This is butchery." Day One stood up slowly. "General, how long have the Devourers been killing your people?" 300 years. "How many worlds have you lost?" "Thousands." "How many civilians have died?" Vextar could not answer. The number was too large to comprehend. "This is what war looks like, General," Day One said quietly. "Real war. Not the honorable combat you practice. Not the glorious battles you sing songs about. Real war is ugly. It is brutal. It is doing terrible things because the alternative is worse." "There must be limits," Vextar insisted. "There must be lines we do not cross. Otherwise, we are no better than them." "You are better than them," Day One said. "You have kindness and honor and all the things that make a civilization worth protecting. But you cannot protect those things by being nice to creatures who want to eat you." He walked closer to Vextar. "You asked Earth for warriors. Warriors fight with honor and courage. They follow rules. They respect their enemies. Warriors are wonderful in peacetime and useless in war." "Then what are you?" Vextar asked. Day One's eyes were very dark. "We are what you need. We are the ones who do the dirty work so you can keep your hands clean. We are the monsters you can blame when the nightmares come." He paused. "You asked for warriors, General. We sent executioners." Private Jiwoo appeared in the doorway. She was young, barely 20, with a bandage on her arm and blood on her armor. "Captain Medical says 17 of our people are wounded. 3 critical. Corporal Minho is dead. Send his belongings to his family," Day One said. "Put his name on the memorial wall. Make sure his death is recorded as honorable." "Yes, sir." Jiwoo saluted and left. Vextar watched her go. "Do you feel anything?" he asked. "When your people die? When you kill the enemy? Anything at all?" Day One was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," he finally said. "I feel tired. I feel old, even though I am young. I feel angry that the universe is cruel enough to make this necessary." He looked at Vextar directly. "But I do not feel guilty. Because every devourer we kill today is one that will not kill your civilians tomorrow. Every brutal tactic we use is one more day your children get to live in peace. At what cost?" Vextar whispered. "At the cost of our souls," Day One said simply. "That is what Earth sent. That is what you asked for even if you did not know it. You wanted someone to do." The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Fortress Station Krell 9 had held. For the first time in decades, a major defensive position had not fallen. The Devourers had attacked with overwhelming force and been destroyed. Completely destroyed. The Coalition was celebrating. But the celebration felt wrong somehow. Forced. In the Grand Senate Chamber on the Coalition homeworld, 1,200 representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency session. The room was built to inspire hope, with walls that showed the stars and ceiling that seemed to stretch into infinity. Today it felt like a tomb. Ambassador Thelron stood at the podium, all 4 of his eyes scanning the crowd. He had known this day would come. He had prepared for it. But now that it was here, the words stuck in his throat. "The human forces have achieved 17 consecutive victories," he said finally. 17 battles. 0 defeats. Our casualty rates have dropped from 40% to 8%. Territory we thought lost forever has been reclaimed. The Devourers are retreating for the first time in living memory." He paused. "But that single word made the chamber go silent." "But there have been complications," Thelron continued carefully. "Questions about human methods. Concerns about their tactics. Reports that are disturbing." A representative from the Valorian Empire stood up. His name was Kelrath, and he was old even by Valorian standards. He had fought in the first battles against the Devourers 300 years ago. His face was covered in scars that he wore like medals. "Disturbing," Kelrath's voice boomed through the chamber. "Ambassador Thelron, you speak as if we are discussing a minor protocol violation. What the humans are doing is barbarism. They do not take prisoners. They do not show mercy. They use chemical weapons, biological agents, and tactics that violate every code of warfare we have developed over 10,000 years. Another representative stood. She was from the Nixari Collective, a species that prided itself on logic and reason. Yesterday, human forces destroyed a Devourer supply depot. This would be acceptable. But the depot was located on an inhabited moon. The humans were warned that there were 300 civilians in the area. They bombed it anyway. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded that the humans be expelled immediately. Others argued that they were winning and that was all that mattered. Thelron raised his hands for silence. Let us not forget why we contacted Earth in the first place. We were losing. We were dying. Every strategy we tried failed. The humans have given us something we have not had in centuries. Hope. Hope? Kelrath laughed bitterly. Is that what you call it? I call it shame. Every time a human ship fires on a helpless enemy, I feel shame. Every time they ignore our rules of engagement, I feel shame. They are making us complicit in war crimes. War crimes? A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. The crowd turned to see Colonel Jae-hyun walking down the aisle. She was Earth's official liaison to the coalition, a woman in her 40s with gray hair and tired eyes. She had not been invited to this session. She had come anyway. Colonel, Thelron said nervously, this is a closed session of the Coalition Senate. Only representatives are allowed. I am here representing 6 billion humans who are currently fighting and dying for your civilization, Jae-hyun said coldly. I think that earns me the right to speak, Kelrath pointed at her. You dare enter this chamber after what your people have done? You should be arrested, tried, punished for winning, Jae-hyun interrupted. For doing what you could not do? For saving your people. She reached the podium and turned to face the Senate. You sit here in your beautiful chamber talking about honor and codes of conduct. Do you want to know about honor? Let me show you honor. She activated a holographic display. The image showed Earth, not the peaceful blue planet from space, but cities. Ruined cities. Burned forests. Oceans turned to glass. This is Earth in the year 1945, Jae-hyun said. We had just finished a war that killed 85 million people. We developed weapons that could burn entire cities in seconds. And we used them. Because the alternative was worse, the image changed. This is Earth in 2077. We nearly destroyed ourselves in a nuclear war. Billions died. Our planet was poisoned. And we survived. We learned. We rebuilt. Another image. This is Earth in 2134. A plague engineered as a weapon. 300 million dead in 6 months. We stopped it by doing things that would make you sick to hear. But we stopped it. She turned off the display and looked directly at Kelrath. You want to lecture us about honor? About proper conduct? Humans have been fighting for survival since we climbed out of caves and realized that everything in the world wanted to eat us. We have died in every way possible. We have suffered through horrors you cannot imagine. And we have learned one truth that you refuse to accept. What truth? Kelrath demanded. That nice people do not survive, Jae-hyun said quietly. That honor is a luxury for species who are winning. That if you want to protect the innocent, someone has to be willing to do terrible things. Leora stood up from her seat. She looked older than she had a month ago. More tired. Colonel, I understand that Earth has a violent history. But surely you can see that what your forces are doing goes beyond necessity. They enjoy the killing. I have seen it in their eyes. No, Jae-hyun said. You have seen determination. Focus. The ability to do what must be done without flinching. If that looks like enjoyment to you, it is because you have never had to make the choice between your conscience and your survival. She walked down into the Senate floor, looking at the faces around her. Let me tell you about Sergeant Tae Yang. He is 35 years old. He has a wife and 2 children back on Earth. Before the war, he was a teacher. He taught history to children. Do you know what he teaches now? No one answered. He teaches young soldiers how to kill efficiently, how to set traps, how to make enemies suffer before they die. He teaches these things because if he does not, those young soldiers will die, and their families will receive letters saying that their children died with honor, as if honor will fill the empty seat at the dinner table. The chamber was silent now. Jae-hyun's voice was getting louder. Lieutenant Hana was a doctor before the war. She saved lives. Now she calculates acceptable casualty rates. Private Jiwoo was an artist. She painted beautiful things. Now she paints her armor black so the blood does not show. These are not monsters. They are people who have been forced to become monsters because you needed them to be. We did not ask them to violate every principle of civilized warfare, Kelrath said, but his voice was quieter now. Yes, you did, Jaehyun said. Maybe not with words. But when you sent that message to Earth, when you asked for help, you were asking for someone to do what you could not. Someone to cross the lines you would not cross. Did you think we would fight with honor and win? In 300 years, your honor has won you nothing but funerals. She pulled up new data on the display. Before humans arrived, the Devourers destroyed an average of 3 worlds per month. How many worlds have they destroyed in the last 2 months? Thelron answered quietly. None. How many Coalition civilians have died? Fewer than at any time in the last century. How many Coalition soldiers have returned home to their families instead of dying in glorious last stands? Thelron did not answer. The number was too large. Too hopeful. Jaehyun turned back to the Senate. You are welcome to put my people on trial. You are welcome to call us war criminals and monsters. But first ask yourselves this question. How many of you are alive right now because a human was willing to do something terrible? A young representative from the crystal species stood up. Her name was Shara, and she was barely old enough to hold office. Colonel Jaehyun, I do not doubt that your methods are effective, but if we accept them, if we say that the ends justify the means, then what have we become? If we abandon our principles to survive, have we really survived at all? It was the question everyone had been thinking. Jaehyun looked at the young representative for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was sad. That is a beautiful question, Representative Shara. It is the kind of question asked by people who have never watched their world burn. The kind of question that shows you still believe the universe cares about your principles. She walked closer to Shara. Here is my answer. Yes, you have survived. Your children will grow up. Your artists will create beauty. Your philosophers will debate ethics, all because someone was willing to dirty their hands so yours could stay clean. But at what cost? Shara asked. What does it cost your people to do these things? Jaehyun smiled, but there was no happiness in it. Everything. It costs us everything. Every soldier we send to fight your war goes home changed, broken. They will wake up screaming from nightmares. They will flinch at sudden noises. They will struggle to feel joy or love or any of the things that make life worth living. Some of them will drink themselves to death. Some will eat a bullet. Some will just go through the motions of living until they finally die inside. The chamber was completely silent now. That is the price Earth is paying, Jaehyun continued. We are sacrificing our humanity so you can keep yours. We are becoming the monsters so you do not have to, and when this war is over, you will send us away. The war had been going on for 6 months since the humans arrived. 6 months of victory after victory. The Devourers were retreating across every front. Worlds that had been lost for decades were being reclaimed. For the first time in 300 years, the Coalition was winning. But Captain Daewon did not feel like he was winning. He felt like he was drowning. He stood in the briefing room aboard the human flagship, looking at the holographic display that showed the galaxy. Most of it was blue now, marking Coalition territory. But there was still one red dot. One single point of light that represented the source of everything, the Devourer homeworld. We have known its location for 147 years, General Vexitar said. He had been working closely with the humans for months now. He no longer looked at them with horror. Now he just looked tired. We have never had the strength to attack it. And our laws forbid offensive genocide. Your laws, Lieutenant Hana said quietly. Not ours. The room went silent. Everyone knew what she meant. Everyone had known for weeks that this moment would come. Major Sungmin stood up. He was older than most of the human soldiers, nearly 40, with scars that told stories of a dozen wars. I have been running the calculations. If we hit the homeworld, we can end this permanently. The Devourers have no colony worlds, no outposts. Everything is centralized on one planet, one target. How many Devourers live there? Commander Leora asked. She had been attending human briefings more often lately, trying to understand how they thought, trying to find some way to make peace with what was happening. Approximately 4 billion, Sungmin said. Leora closed her eyes. 4 billion, civilians, children. The Devourers do not have civilians, Sergeant Taeyang said. Every member of their species is raised to fight. Their children are trained from birth. There is no distinction between soldier and citizen in their culture. They are still children, Leora said. So are the ones they eat, Tae-yang replied. Dae-won raised his hand for silence. Show them the plan. Sung-min activated a new display. It showed the Devourer homeworld in its star. We have developed a weapon. We call it the Sun Death device. It destabilizes the star's core, causing a cascade reaction. The star will expand, consuming the inner planets, including the homeworld. You want to destroy their sun? Vextar asked. His voice was very quiet. Yes, that is not warfare. That is extinction. Yes, Sung-min said again. Ambassador Thelron, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Captain Dae-won, surely there must be another way. We could blockade the planet. Demand surrender. Negotiate terms. We have been over this, Dae-won said. Every time we have captured Devourers, they have refused to negotiate. They do not surrender. They do not compromise. They fight until they die or until we die. Those are the only two options they understand. Then we make them understand other options, Thelron said desperately. We teach them. We show them that cooperation is possible. Specialist Yuna pulled up data on her screen. I have analyzed 300 years of coalition contact with the Devourers. 15,000 attempts at communication. 0 successful negotiations. They do not want peace, Ambassador. They want to consume. It is not a choice for them. It is their nature. Then we cage them, Leora said. We contain them. Build a fleet around their homeworld so massive they can never escape. But we do not commit genocide. For how long? Hana asked. A year? 10 years? A century? How long do you want to spend resources and lives maintaining a prison for a species that will never stop trying to escape? How many coalition soldiers will die maintaining that blockade? How many children will grow up without parents because you wanted to be merciful to creatures who do not understand mercy? The debate went on for hours. The coalition officers argued for containment, for negotiation, for any solution that did not involve extinction. The humans listened patiently and then explained again and again why those solutions would not work. Finally, Vextar stood up. I want to speak with Captain Dae-won, alone. The room emptied until only the two of them remained. Vextar walked to the window and looked out at the stars. I am 237 years old, he said. I have fought for most of those years. I have seen things that would break younger minds, and I have always believed that there were lines we should not cross, that some things were too terrible to be justified. He turned to look at Dae-won. Am I wrong? Dae-won was silent for a long moment. No, he said finally. You are not wrong. There are lines. There are things too terrible to be justified. Then why? Because sometimes you have to choose between terrible and worse, Dae-won said. Yes, killing 4 billion Devourers is terrible. But letting them continue to exist means they will eventually rebuild, eventually attack again, and next time maybe humanity will not be here to stop them. Maybe they will consume the entire galaxy. How many trillions of lives is 4 billion worth? Vextar sat down heavily. I do not know if I can give this order. You do not have to, Dae-won said. This is a human operation. We will take full responsibility. When the history books are written, they can say that the barbaric humans committed genocide while the honorable coalition tried to stop us. That is not fair to your people. Dae-won smiled sadly. General, nothing about this war has been fair. To anyone. The Coalition High Council met an emergency session. The vote was not about whether to attack the Devourer homeworld. The humans had made it clear they were going to do that regardless. The vote was about whether to support them or condemn them. The chamber was packed. Every representative had come. The debate was passionate, angry, and painful. Some argued that supporting the humans would make the coalition complicit in genocide. Others argued that condemning them would be hypocrisy, since the coalition would benefit from the result. Young Shara stood to speak. I am young, she said. I have only been alive for 30 years. I have never known a galaxy without the Devourer threat. My parents died fighting them. My siblings died fleeing them. If someone had asked me a year ago what I would be willing to do to end this war, I would have said anything. Anything at all, she paused, her voice shaking. But now I know what anything means, and I am not sure I can live with it. An older representative responded. With respect, Representative Shara, you may not have to live with it if we do nothing. The humans are offering us a galaxy without Devourers. A galaxy where our children can grow up safe. How many generations have dreamed of this? At the cost of becoming genocide heirs, Shara replied. At the cost of letting someone else become genocide heirs, the older representative corrected. We are not pushing the button. We are just not stopping the humans from pushing it. Is that the same thing? Theleron listened to the debate and felt sick. They were discussing mass murder as if it were a policy decision. As if 4 billion lives were just numbers on a spreadsheet. But he also knew the numbers on the other side of the equation. 300 years of war, thousands of worlds destroyed, trillions of coalition citizens dead or enslaved. When the vote was called, he abstained. He could not bring himself to vote yes, but he could not vote no either, knowing that his vote might doom future generations to the same nightmare. The vote passed. Barely. By the slimmest margin possible. The humans were authorized to proceed. But they were forbidden from using coalition resources or personnel. The coalition would not help. They would just not interfere. It was the worst kind of compromise. Everyone felt guilty and no one felt good about it. The human fleet departed 2 days later. Day 1 commanded from the flagship. His crew was unusually quiet. They knew what they were about to do. They knew that after today, they would be remembered as either saviors or monsters, possibly both. Lieutenant Hana worked at her station, preparing the final calculations for the sun death device. Her hands were steady, but her eyes were red. She had not slept in 2 days. Lieutenant, Day 1 said quietly. If you want to request reassignment, no, sir, Hana interrupted. If we are going to do this, we do it together, all of us. We share the guilt. The fleet reached the Devourer homeworld 3 weeks later. The orbital defenses were heavy, but not heavy enough. Sungmin's strike team fought through them with brutal efficiency. They had become very good at killing over the past 6 months. As the final defense platform fell, Day 1 received a transmission. A Devourer elder speaking through a translator offering terms. Surrender, peace, negotiation. Day 1 looked at the translation on his screen. Part of him wanted to believe it. Wanted to think that maybe finally the Devourers had learned. That genocide was not necessary. But Specialist Yuna pulled up the data. Every time the Devourers had offered peace, it had been a trap. Every single time, Day 1 made his decision. Activate the sun death device, he ordered. Sir, Yuna said quietly, there is still time to reconsider. I know, Day 1 said. Activate the device, the weapon deployed. Deep in the star's core, reactions began to cascade. It would take hours for the star to destabilize. Hours for the Devourers to realize what was happening. Hours for them to try to evacuate, knowing they would not have time. Day 1 sat in his command chair and watched the countdown. He did not look away. He did not pray or meditate or try to find peace with what he had done. He just watched and waited. When the star began to expand, consuming the inner planets one by one,